thank you for joining me today. So just to fill the blanks, the people obviously who might listen to this, they've not got any idea whatsoever of your backstory. So I'll just begin just to say that I think was it about 2.5 years ago that I first sort of made contact
Yeah,
with you? And,
yeah, I think so.
yeah.
But yeah, about 2.5 years ago. Yes.
And what was the reason for us connecting?
Well,
In your words.
at the time, I had my 15-year-old son, that was in the height of, addiction, like alcoholism, drugs, anything really. And I mean, this had been going on for quite a while. And, there's no help whatsoever for a 15-year-old in the UK. So, this is my child. I want to help my child. I want to save my child. And addiction is like you're watching someone, one of the people that you love the most, just committing slow suicide, basically. And, it, I sort of, I was trying to find help anywhere I could. And there was nothing until one day someone passed me your details, and yeah, it's sort of, you helped save him basically. So I had a child struggling with addiction, and yeah.
Can I
Um,
just ask you, because you said he was 15 at the time,
mm.
um, how long had that been going on for? I don't think I'm even sure of that actually.
No, and well, funnily enough, nor am I, because from talking to him, this has seemed to started quite at an early age, but he was very, very good at hiding it. And it all started with alcohol, where I think from talking to him, I reckon from when he was about 11, where he started, sneaking a drink here and there and sort of feeling,
Really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But the first time that I noticed it was probably when he was about 14, and where, I started noticing, like, I'd have, I don't know, a bottle of wine in the fridge or something. You start noticing things disappearing, or, for, I don't know, Christmas occasions. I'm not a big drinker, but, in the back of your cupboard, you might have, I don't know, some rum or, any of those kind of things that you actually never drink, but they're kind of there for years and years. And then suddenly you open that cupboard and you realize there's nothing left in there. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's quite a common thing, I think. I mean, like, I really relate to that. I mean, I certainly was being quite crafty like Alex and, being very, um did you say, yeah, you didn't have any idea that he was doing it, but the only sort of indication was your maybe some alcohol was missing or the levels were going down. You're like, "Huh? What's going
yeah,
on?" Yeah.
yeah. And then I would say he'd been doing it for quite a while, but then from when he was about 14, I started noticing that. But then also, I think he was really, very much in the grip of alcoholism. And, if he couldn't get his hands on that, he started doing drugs as well. And with that, I mean, the behavior, you can really, really see the change,
Yeah.
the
What
change in behavior.
what sort of, the standouts? I mean, I already know this, but, what the
Anger,
standouts?
anger, I would say, extreme anger, and especially in problems in school. They had me on problems in school because one of the things that they do, he's never been able to really, I think this is a typical boy thing where, just sit on hours on a chair, paying attention, has
Mhm.
never been his strength.
Yeah.
But then, it sort of started escalating to the point where he would throw chairs at teachers, or he would, make threats to the point where Well, really, really vile threats, sort of death threats to teachers as well, where
Mm,
probably he was drunk or high. I didn't know at the time. All I knew was he was very, very angry. And they had me on speed dial, to go and get him, basically, to
from the
take him away.
school, from the school, yeah, yeah,
Yes, to take him away. And, it very, within, I would say within a span of about 8 months, and that's probably, the drugs and everything and the amounts that he was taking to try and, chase that high, because I guess your body builds up a tolerance. His behavior was just escalating to he became very, very, dangerous, like, to myself, and I've got a daughter as well, to my daughter, or even the pets. We had pets in the house. It's just this anger coming out.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so the because you're having to obviously navigate all of this on your own. You didn't have, like, you know, you haven't got a partner with you by your side saying, "Wait,
No.
mate, stop that."
Mm.
So you've had to do that all on your own. The being in a house with, like a snarling, raging typhoon that's coming at you, I mean, he was never, because I know this from your story that, you know, underpinning that behavior is obviously something far, far greater than, you know, his emotion and his problem behavior. Um, so how did you, in a time that you didn't have any real, because you said you didn't feel like you had any support,
No.
how did you actually contain that? Was it because you probably just normalized it, right?
Uh, it's it's really difficult. It's sort of it was really, um it was very lonely, I have to say. How did I contain this? My main objective was keeping everyone safe, including him. And it was so, thinking back, the thing is, like, I was scared of him, really, really scared of him when,
Mhm.
he was in one of his sort of alcoholic rages, as I called them.
And this is Alex, 15 years old, right? This isn't like he's 15.
He's 15, taller than me, but in such a it's like it's not even it's not human rage, it's like he turns into the Hulk.
Teen Hulk, basically.
But through it all, the thing was that, you know, that wasn't my son, that was alcohol. That was a child crying out for help. God, makes me cry thinking about it.
Mm.
Crying out for help, and no one was helping. No one was helping. Example, one day he disappeared, basically. He disappeared. I phoned police, reported him as a missing person, because didn't know where he was,
Mm.
didn't know whether he was safe. And so he disappeared for about 24 hours. I was on the phone all night to the police trying to get updates. Didn't find him until some random stranger the following day phoned me, asking me whether I was his mum, to which I said yes. And they found him on a high street somewhere. And my initial reaction was, "Is he okay? Do I need to phone an ambulance?" And they said, "No, no, he's fine. We'll bring him back." And then 1 minute later, they phoned me saying, "I think you should phone an ambulance. He's passed out. He's foaming at the mouth. He was clearly overdosing on whatever he'd taken."
So
But
we're talking about drugs now, like, you know, chemicals, like, yeah.
Well, chemicals, yes, chemicals, and alcohol, which we subsequently sort of, found what was actually in his system. I phoned the ambulance. They said, "Oh, we can't come out because he's not with you." To which I'm like, "Well, he's in a van somewhere being brought over and he's clearly overdosing." Anyway, they finally arrived, to the house and, take him out. He is unconscious. I'm on the phone with a paramedic when now the ambulance is on their way. And, they're telling me what to do and he stops breathing. So all of a sudden, this paramedic goes, "Don't panic, but you need to give
Tap. Oh, yeah.
chest compressions." He died on my driveway. So, to which in the meantime, I had phoned a friend because I've got, a daughter who's a bit younger there as well. So all of this is going on. I'm giving him chest compressions. the ambulance arrives, the police arrives thinking they've got a dead teenager on their hands. And, with that, suddenly he comes to. Anyway, not to keep it too long, we end up in the hospital, obviously. It turned out he had taken a cocktail of MDMA, cocaine, alcohol, copious amount of alcohol. I mean, crazy, and so all of that, he just overdosed. So he was on a trip in the hospital trying to flush everything out of his system. They said it'll take about an hour. 6 hours later, he finally wakes up. So to which I say, so are you going to bring someone in from CAMS, maybe, anyone? So, and this doctor turns around and says, no, 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 there's no problem here. He did this recreationally. CAMS can't be called for that. So that's the kind of help that we got.
So, what you've just described, which may sound unbelievable to some, 15-year-old that's going through this, um, is very, very common. It's really common, um, from my point of view, anyway. From what I've observed and experienced and been part of, um, and from my own experience, actually. So, I think where we're at the moment is that, I know this sounds really shit what I'm saying, but it's unfortunate that you was caught in this situation where there are, it appears, not enough resources to accommodate your needs, what's happening. It's kind of like, and that's, I'm using the word unfortunate, but what do you do with that? When you're getting sent out back home and this is going to play out again and again because that's what
But
happened, right?
yeah, and there is no help. This is like, because obviously I started trying to find help, and every time I was told he's under 16, we have nothing for under 16. There is no rehab, no nothing. The only rehab that would take 15-year-olds in the UK shut down because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so there was nothing, nothing at
Yeah.
all.
So that's where you was at that time, and how long from that point to you entering, what should we call it, the solution? The when you started seeing a silver lining. I guess that was when um, you know you got my number. I started to engage, and we started to
Yeah.
you know turn in a different direction, try something different. So how soon after that hospital incident, which must mean like, well, absolutely traumatic for you to do that.
I would say probably a few months after, maybe 2,
Okay.
3 months after, I would say.
And we both know that it got a lot worse before it got better. I mean, it was just
It it did.
flatlining. Yeah.
It definitely did. It did. I mean, like, to go back to, your question about how did did you normalize it? I guess in a sense you do, because you're living with it and there's no escape.
Mm.
Like, I'm a single mom with 2 kids. We like the way we well, the way that I started living was having these plans in place to try and keep everyone safe. So,
Mm.
a lot of like, I had a friend that lived about half an hour away, so she knew I could always turn up on her doorstep, and so we had to do this quite a few times where, when Alexander got into a drunken rage, I we basically, like, my daughter knew as well. She, would get her cat because she's very attached to it. So the cat
Mhm.
carrier lived in her room. I would go and get her. The car was parked underneath her bedroom window, so I could get
Mhm.
her out of the window. So, Alexander wouldn't see her and turn against her. I would put her in the car with the cat, drive her to my friend, make sure she was safe, then drive back home to make sure that he wouldn't, do anything to himself,
Oh,
all the while trying to
yeah.
keep myself safe.
It's like a military operation just to have some sense of not normality, because that's not normal, obviously.
No. No,
But, like,
always a
just to have a sense of control, maybe, just to feel like you've got some sort of handle on this, because otherwise it's completely out of control. It's out
yeah,
of hand,
and
right?
but it is, and this is like, I've had conversations with Alexander, for example, and, some people might say you're enabling. And there is a degree of enabling, but I think, my main focus was keep everyone safe,
Mm.
all the while continuing to try and find help somewhere.
And yeah, absolutely. And more important, not more important, but importantly, is how the fuck, right? When you had Alex, when you decided to have children, right? Whatever, and you bring him into this world, do you have any idea to anticipate that this is all going to play out in a few years'
No,
time,
no,
right? And then when it does, how the fuck do you deal with it? Is there like a manual?
no.
It's
There is no, and there are manuals to raise children, but each child is different. There is no manual, and each parent is different as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's subjective, right? And so circumstance, I'm a big believer in like, we are a byproduct of our environment. And that's not a reflection on anyone's at fault or, there's any blame or someone's got, it's purely for me personally, I believe it's, where are you putting your attention, your focus, your energy, um, at any given point in time in your life to deal with, the circumstances that have been presented to you. Right?
Yeah,
So it's just circumstance, you've brought Alex up on your own. It's really hard, even if he did have a father figure in place. I was the same. Would I have listened? Would I have got in my lane, so to speak, when I'm being a little bit naughty or mischievous, or, I feel like what I relate with Alex to my own self and other people is there's just something in me that is kind of like a little bit dialed in or wired in a certain
yeah,
way, which it doesn't matter who is put in front of you, whether it's a mother, this amazing mother figure or a father figure or this amazing mentor of a teacher at a school or whoever. If I'm gonna be a little bit naughty and a little bit mischievous and deviate and and experiment in things that are, I'm gonna do it.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
think Alex um, had that kind of and like without getting into it all. Do you identify, is there anything you feel, because Alex is gonna, when I talk to Alex, he's gonna have his own spin on this, but what do you see as the thing, all that anger, where's that coming from?
Oh, I think, gosh, I think from various sort of places. It, very big thing is obviously missing a father figure. He's a boy,
Yeah.
and yeah, having grown up, his father is an alcoholic. Maybe not, hasn't admitted this to himself yet, but he is. And it's just, um, yeah, I don't know, trying to fit in. I guess it's just, also that's the other thing. It comes from, I would say, a place of abandonment. So, when you have that, you you already, it's that rejection. So you already start to wonder from very early on, is there something wrong with me? And you convince yourself that there is. And also a very, very big part, well, for example, I know this is at the time, self-loathing,
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
not liking yourself at all. And then if you don't like yourself, you automatically, say to yourself or convince yourself that, well, if I don't like myself, why the heck would anyone else like me?
That
And then,
uh,
and then therefore always trying to be someone else, that's not sustainable, and that brings huge unhappiness if you can't be yourself. Throw in a mix that he's a teenager. Jesus, I mean, yeah.
yeah, we've all been there, right? We've all done the teen thing. I mean, I can't imagine trying to be a teenager in this modern world
No.
right now. It's so fucking, oh my God. So, okay, look, so what you described there, I think is really common as well. I think it's such a common thing of like, not feeling like you're fitting in, um, feeling inadequate is what I feel would encapsulate everything you described, is this
Yeah.
inadequacy of not feeling like you are enough or whatever. For whatever reason, circumstance is what it is. Um, I mean, we can fast forward in a minute and get to where everyone's at now because it's very different. But
Yeah.
it's really hard to get past that sense of, um, as you put it, rejection, abandonment, and feeling like it's basically you feel like a victim
Yeah.
of life and circumstance, and that's where for me a lot of my anger came from. Was like I felt frustrated, like for fuck's sake, oh God, if you only knew what it's like to be me, you'd fucking feel like me too. And I remember when I first turned up and saw Alex, I came to your house and, he didn't when the first visit, he didn't even come out of his room, did he? It was just like,
Huh.
I was just there talking to you, and you were, like, filling in the blanks of, like I kind of already had an idea of what was going on and where he was at, obviously, because of my own experience and working, doing what I do, but, um, yeah, you obviously just got me up to speed with it all, and I think it was like, maybe the 2nd or 3rd house visit that he decided to give me some attention like the dog was. S Is it a dog or a cat? I can't remember, you got both?
We've got both, yeah.
Oh, right. So he decided he was missing out, and I think he came out, and I think he originally thought yeah, I'm sure he said to me, or did you say, that he thought I was there sort of because of you, I think. He thought, "Oh, you just wanna get with my mum." I
See, so he thought that this was all a scheme for me to present you as my boyfriend.
Yeah, he was suspicious. I mean, paranoid. I mean, he was paranoid though, right? His brain was
Totally,
yeah, totally.
totally, yeah.
So let's get out of all the doom and gloom and nitty-gritty of it all, because that's just, we don't need to relive all that. But thank you for sharing that. I mean, I just know how traumatizing that was for you. Um, and I really admire you. I mean, it's like, it's the same with my mum and anyone who's had to go through having a pain in the fucking ass son, like, in their teens.
Yeah, I know, but then, like, very briefly on that, it's like, Alexander spanked me as well, but the thing is, I chose for him to be here, like, he's my son. I will never give up on my children, you know?
Of course
It's
not.
what
Of
it
course not. Yeah, of course
um,
not.
so and through it all, I have to like, I never stopped loving him. There was a time where I didn't like him, but that
Yeah,
didn't mean I didn't love him, you know?
yeah. I love you, but right now I don't fucking like you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, of course. So, and it's counterintuitive for any parent to disown. I mean, it happens,
Oh,
and it's shocking that it's such a shame that it gets to that. But I think it is counterintuitive for any parent to try and to turn away from someone who is suffering like this.
and I was told to do this, like, by various entities.
Yeah,
"Oh, give him some tough love," you just to which my response was, "So everyone, literally, whether it's every institution, his own father, everyone has turned his back on this child. So the only person who's willing to stand by him, you telling me that for his own good, I should, turn my back on him too. No.
it's counterintuitive. It's for a mum. It's like I always say this: that umbilical cord, metaphorically speaking, never gets cut. It's
No.
there for life, and that makes sense to me. So, okay, so look, so you put a call in, I end up coming. This isn't my first rodeo. I've done it a few times. Coming into a situation where it is completely catastrophic, and then we start to work with it, right? So, describe where you was at when that started happening.
Um, it's sort of, well, when, you started to um actually, give you some time and actually engage, there was, a tiny sliver of hope where it made me see that he wanted to be helped. He just didn't know how. He'd been let down by so many people. So you coming in and his, reaction to you and, the fact that he was willing to listen, I don't know, it was the first time where I thought, "Okay, maybe we can get through this."
Mm. Do you
Uh,
know what, I mean, I know what it was, but do you know what it was that sort of flicked the light on for him and he started to listen and be open to maybe getting help? Do you know?
yeah, well, I think 2 reasons, but the main reason would be, because of your experience. So he knew he couldn't bullshit you, basically. And also the fact that you'd gone through, the same experiences. It you know, he'd been talking to, other people from charities and whatnot, but until you talk to someone who's gone through
Mm.
what you're going through, um, so yeah, that made it very relatable to him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always see it like hostage negotiating. That's what I do. So it's kind of like, no, it is though, because he's taking himself hostage in his
Yeah,
bedroom and in the prison of his mind. And essentially, he's taking you, his sister, the dog, the cat, hostage
yeah.
in the house. You know what I mean? And everyone's tiptoeing around on eggshells. And of course, we know that he doesn't mean to do that. He doesn't want to be doing what he's doing. He doesn't
Mm.
like himself. The fact that I didn't like myself when I was causing, you know, suffering for myself and other people. So, we've just got to figure out how can we get through to, and past that because it's fear. He's so scared. He's scared. Like you
Yes,
said,
yes.
he's so scared. He's just holed up in his room, taking himself hostage, and he doesn't want to come out without a fight.
Well, because he can't see a way out either. And,
Mm.
like you just said as well, I know that he didn't want to be like that. And then when he was like that, it made him even more angry towards himself or upset even. It's that other thing, it's just that other thing of society as well, isn't it? Boys don't cry. So instead of, yeah, no, but it is basically. So instead of crying, let's be angry.
Yeah, let's go around and be the bad man and kick shit out of myself and everyone else in the
Yeah,
process. You know?
yeah.
So I never went in his room. I never went in his room. The whole time I came to your house, I never actually went in his room. He never let me. It's like a vampire. They gotta ask you to come in. You gotta be invited in. But like he painted all of his walls black or
Pieces
something.
are more painted in black, and then, the wall by his bed, so on the black wall, he carved a hangman in there above his bed.
Lovely.
Yeah.
See, so that just gives you a snapshot of where his head was at. So, okay, how do we get him out of this? So, how do we get him out of this? So, um, yeah, me sharing my experience of saying, look, mate, I get it. I know where you're at. And I really do. And this is why, blah, blah, blah. And I tell him a little bit about my car crash story. And then he starts to listen, right? He
No, I
starts,
remember because I remember that. I remember the first time you spoke to him, he wasn't really listening. He was standing there and I could see him. And then you started talking about your own experience. And I was watching him and I so photographically remember him looking up. And it was kind of almost like a twitch in his eye going, "Oh, okay. Maybe this guy isn't bullshitting me. Maybe he does understand what I'm going through."
yeah.
I do remember that.
Wow, wow, wow. It's amazing how you capture these snapshots in your mind. So, okay, so after a handful of visits and more conversations, because I remember the extent was that I'd come into your house, we'd touch base, we'd have a chat, we'd check in, how you doing, where are we at the moment, what's the latest, what's happened now, and then he would sort of sheepishly come out, but more and more so he would come sort of further towards into the kitchen, and I remember
Yeah.
we'd start talking in the kitchen. I remember probably one of the last conversations we had before we started to really, step it up and take action in the right direction. He was really engaged. He started to really his shoulders had dropped a little bit, and
Yeah.
he'd opened up a little bit more, and I just knew that at that point we could, something was gonna happen, and we could get him out of here, get him out of there. So, there is no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong way of doing it. There's some amazing support groups out there that, that's how ultimately, I didn't have, I didn't go to a specialist treatment center or a clinic or rehab, whatever you want to call it. Um, I got help through support groups, and I did some counseling and therapy and all that stuff. So there is no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. But for Alex, being his age, because we're still working with someone who's 15, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and you being, you know, um, on your own, you didn't have the luxury of, oh, let's take our pick. Where are we going to send him? Let's get him,
No.
get him somewhere glamorous and, or whatever. So that definitely wasn't an option. So I think I did suggest to Alex, maybe support groups, but because of his age, that's the problem. He's 15. So like, what
Yeah.
do we do? So I knew of a couple of places that were some options, and obviously we don't want to be seen to be promoting these places, but they're out there. There are places out there. Um, we decided to I think I can't remember really how it all played out. I go into sort of like a bit of a I zone out when this happens, and it just happens,
No.
you know what I mean?
Well, no, I guess for me, it's a journey that I'll never forget. But I remember, so one of the last sort of, I phoned you. I was in the car actually. It was dark. I was driving to go and pick him up, and I phoned you in a panic because a day or so before, he basically went into a psychotic episode. And where he ended up, with the biggest kitchen knife, cutting his whole arm, but then doing the final slice in his arm that, he would have died basically. So, and that was kinda, and I remember I phoned you in a panic, basically saying to you, "He's going to die." Genuinely believe that. And you said to me, "I'm gonna phone him. If he doesn't pick up, I'll phone you, pass him the phone, and I'll talk to him." I have no idea. So you did phone him, he didn't pick up. Then you phoned me. I went and gave him my phone. Remarkably, he took my phone and he listened to what you said. I have no idea what you said to him, but then, I got you back on the phone and you said, "Pack a suitcase, we're going in 3 days' time."
Fuck, I honestly, right, I swear on my life, I do not know what I said to him. I kinda zone out. I don't
I don't know how you convinced him, but then I had 3 days of trying to keep him in the house, not to run away because he'd done that several times where he refused to come home. I didn't know where he was, and he took himself off on the street, or to keep him safe. So, okay, this is not strictly legal, but the only way that I managed to keep him at home for 3 days is, I would drive him to his dealer, I would buy him weed, come back home, and let him smoke as much weed as he wanted.
and he smoked a lot of weed. He smoked a lot of weed, didn't he? Jesus.
Yeah,
I mean, so
but
it's
he was calm at home, basically, so
yeah, 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 and you gotta do what you gotta do, man, to tame the beast, right? So his psychosis, was that the first time that you'd seen him like that in psychosis, or was that kind of because like, I'm no doctor, I'm no expert.
no, no.
I know from my own experience and from what I see that, smoking copious amounts of the green, the sticky icky weed,
Yeah, yeah.
it does cause problems, so psychosis, he wouldn't be the first, and he's certainly not the last, to be affected by some nutty behavior in that department. So was that the first time that had happened or not?
But this was alcohol.
Ah, okay, all right.
This was not to say this was alcohol. It was the first time that it happened to that extreme because basically that whole night, um, so he'd been drinking in his room and became so aggressive, more so than I'd ever seen him, and so
Mm,
I literally had to run with Ella and the cat, and drove to my friend's house,
gee,
went to drop my daughter off, came back, and, I came back and the house was quiet, and I was like, "Okay." Um, I thought he must have gone to sleep,
mm,
and so I got ready for bed. I went into my room and, he had nailed a suicide note to the inside of my door. Um,
oh,
so I had to go in his room to make sure that he wasn't dead, which
mm,
I thought he was. He wasn't, and then he woke up because I tried to wake him up, obviously, which was a big mistake, but I didn't know whether he was alive or dead. And then he went into this psychotic episode where he thought we were, in The Walking Dead. So, he had to like, he then like, he was in this psychotic episode where he wasn't aggressive anymore, but I wasn't allowed to move from the living room. He had to go and get all the knives, all like a giant wooden stick, like, he had to protect me, like, because
yeah,
there were, like, zombies out there, and I wasn't allowed to move past a certain point. And then, I don't know, it's just like, I'm not, going to go in all of those details, but it ended up
no,
with him literally just slicing his whole arm
yeah,
open to the point where, he was bleeding out, and the ambulance couldn't come out for about 3 hours, so I had to go and drive it myself to the hospital.
yeah,
The only way that I could convince him to get into this car is to allow him to, put all of the kitchen knives in the car as protection. And
jeez.
even by the time we arrived at the hospital, he was still convinced, that we were surrounded by enemies and whatnot.
Okay. Look, so look, thank you for getting into that, right? Because I know how traumatizing that is. You right? You okay?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Take
good.
take a breath.
I went through it, so it's
Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, I mean, look, you're sitting there now, and you're in the in the solution. So you're just recalling events, and I know how traumatizing that is. So look, so you go to hospital, you get stabilized, and then how soon after that did we get him out of the country? I can't remember. This is all a bit
about 4 days after,
okay.
because I phoned you the following day, um, and then you spoke to him, and literally 3 days later,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Okay.
he was gone.
And we made a little plan, didn't we? Because obviously you've just described where Alex was at that time.
Mm,
So Alex wasn't really inclusive in the the logistics of it all. It was kind of like, right, we got to do something here, otherwise you're right, you're gonna have something a fatality. And so we had to just sort it, and we plotted and we got it going, and I think we had to get him to a faraway land where, I think the financial part of it for you was challenging, of course.
yeah,
So we just had to try and figure out scratch our heads, because if we had just done nothing and tried to rely on, um, the the support or the resources, sorry, that are readily available in his local area. Well, I don't know if they were readily available, I'm not sure. I mean,
no,
we just had to do something a bit different and think outside the box. So we did a scramble, right? You did a scramble. Um, God knows what, sold a car or something. I don't know, but you, it's like just whatever you could do, you did, because
yeah,
that's what a mother does in this sort of scenario. You'll go to any lengths, right? Um, and
yeah.
we got him to the airport, right? Or
Yeah,
I got
built.
into I got into the airport, but it's a we thing. I couldn't have done this on my own. Honestly, I'm just like a mere, I'm just part of you know, the totality of getting him where he needed to get to. I couldn't have done it on my own, and I couldn't have done it without the people at the other end who were gonna, you know. bloody take him take him in and
Yeah.
give him that wonderful support and help him, you know? So we did it, we did it. So when I turned up, the problem was is getting someone like Alex to an airport on a plane. And how do you do that when he's not, you know, he can't do a single minute without using something to get as high as he can and far removed from his reality, which is so unbearable, you know? It's like, how do you do that? And again, luckily, I've got a little bit of experience in dealing with such matters. So I kind of, like I say, I go into like this zone, I zone out, and I just, you know, I'm like a conduit. I literally just, you know, it's like someone on an electric guitar. You know, it's like Jimi Hendrix is playing.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, you become part of the guitar. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And you're not really thinking about it. That's where my head goes. You know, and I think
yeah,
I could only do that because I've been in my own experience of, you know, different stories, different scenarios,
yeah.
different circumstances, but there's a lot of similarities. And it's like,
Well, and your own as well, I would think,
yes.
you know.
So, yeah, I remember turning up at the house on the morning. I think it was a morning, I can't remember, but I turned up in a
It was.
to go and take him down to the airport down at London, which was about, because 'cause you're out west, aren't you? I mean, it was like you was out west at that time. It was about
Yeah.
an hour or no, it's probably hour and a half drive, I can't remember. But anyway, um, I turn up at the house and he's off his nut.
Well, I allowed him to, bake brownies, so, yeah.
Yeah, well, he certainly indulged in that. He had like it was like a tray, wasn't it, of like of
It was a tray, and then he had a couple of Tupperwares, filled with brownies, yeah.
and we had to call it because it was like, "Oh, man, like, you know, we can't take this you can't take this on the flight, mate." So, like, and he's like, well, you know, in his mind, he'd created a masterpiece, you know, he'd done this amazing he'd baked this amazing, you know, dessert,
He did.
and he didn't want to depart with it, and he'd already eaten a third of it, I think. I very but
I don't know, he sort of because he was like, "Oh, well, it's not doing anything," which obviously I'm guessing it's slow release or something, so he just decided to eat as many as he could.
oh, man, well, he say did that, and in the car, and then I remember obviously how I mean, what was going through your mind at that point? Because I remember, you know, it was kind of like I had to be quite just thorough with like, right, I'm turning up,
Mm.
I'm grabbing him, and I'm gonna go, and then we can't hang around. It was just like very did it feel cold and calculated, or did it feel? Because I remember just sort of like you being on the doorstep and we're driving off, and you must I mean, what goes through your head at that point? You hardly know him, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was shell shocked. A lot went through me. Part of me was relieved, to have that break, but then part of me was absolutely terrified where I thought, "What have I done?" Like, I don't actually know you. Like, am I ever going to see him again? Are you really taking him where we said you were? So I started Googling you.
Oh, really? Fucking hell. Why didn't you do that earlier before I fucking
I don't know because I guess I don't know, whenever you would turn up. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier.
oh my
It's
god.
sort of it's only at that moment where I thought, "Shit, what have I done?" Like, really? And then I thought, I realized you were who you said you were, and I kinda thought of, "Okay, I've gotta trust this." Um, but this is like the first 3 months. It took him 3 months to engage actually, with, people in the rehab. Those first 3 months, some of the hardest times ever in the sense he would phone me, and it took me everything to not get on a flight and bring him back home because it was emotional blackmail, and I had to keep reminding myself, he's with people that can help me because this was the thing. I wanted to help him, but I couldn't. And I had to trust that he was where he was meant to be with people that were, would help him. And so it took him 3 months, but he was only going to go for 3 months. So after 3 months, I always remember, he phoned me and it was like a switch. Something like a switch had gone on in his mind. It was like speaking to a different person. I had my son back. It was amazing. I remember after I spoke to him for about an hour and a half, put the phone down and I cried, thinking I didn't think I would ever, ever speak to, you know, like my son like that ever again. And then he did ask if he could stay another 3 months.
Wow. Wow. I mean, who says that? I mean, like, you go to rehab, you like, get me the fuck out of there. I can only imagine, and that is the same for, I'm sure, some people. But I mean, I do know people that actually really miss being somewhere like that. They're like, wow, in reflection, in hindsight, it was just like one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. But it's subjective, some people
Yeah.
really struggle with it. It all depends on where you're at. And I knew I think I knew deep down, or I do know, that I wouldn't have taken him, I wouldn't take anyone anywhere, or if I knew, I always know that it's possible. I always know. It's a lottery, of course,
Yeah.
because you're not granted such luxuries as having a lot of control over the matter,
No.
especially as a parent, or even from my point of view, all I do is I'm kind of like a bridge, between, where you're at and getting them to, the promised land, if you want to call it that, and all I can guarantee is that I can get him from point A to point B, and then what he does with that is kind of, it is a
Up
lot.
to him. Yeah.
And, I mean, it worked out, right?
I w gosh, did it just. It's just like, I'm so grateful and very, very proud of him because for a 15-year-old, where he was he chose to live, basically. That's the thing. He chose to live. He chose life, and to choose life, he had to face his own demons. And at 15, that's a scary thing to do. Um,
I work with a lot of younger people, the adolescents, the mavericks, the rebels, the fucking, they I mean, there's some that make it, some that don't, and, you know, the ones that do it, the ones that subscribe to, like what you say, to choose life
mm,
and to not give up, to not define themselves as being a victim, to not to say, "Wait, no, fuck that. I'm not gonna be a victim of my circumstance.
totally.
Find my shit, I'm gonna empower myself. I'm gonna do something with my life. I'm gonna turn my, you know, experience, no matter how bad it may appear, I'm gonna turn that into something really fucking good, And I'm blown away by people that I failed to do it until my early 30s, to do what they do. And it blows my mind. That's why it makes me so um inspired, and I'm really truly grateful to, be part of, even if it's just flicking that switch and giving them
Yeah.
a little bit of insight to say, look, this is what you can do, but you got to go and do it. And they have to do the work. And Alex did the work.
Yeah.
He's still doing the work.
He's still doing, well, addiction is for life. But he's very much still doing the work and he's doing the work for himself, but also by helping others.
And that is incredible. So look, how so where so that was all of what we just went through, that happened, was it, did you say 2 years ago? I lost track. Was it 2 years ago?
Well, he came out of rehab last year. So,
He was over there for quite some time, wasn't he?
yeah, he was there for 6 months. Um,
Which is, I mean, some people listening to this might be like, 6 months in a rehab, what the fuck, But where we took him, which wasn't in this country, um, enabled that process to be that long because it's just,
Yeah.
there's a lot out there. I mean, look, there's places, of course, in the UK, of course there are. There's places all over the world, and, you know, I've been involved with, you know, different places in different parts of the world, and it is subjective. You know, it depends on where you're at, what luxuries or luxuries you haven't got, and you just have to figure it out and go with, you know, you have to take a risk, right? It was a complete risk for
Totally.
you.
Yeah, I would say from experience with him, I would say you need time. Um, and also what I really liked about this place in particular, yes, he's an addict, but the addiction is not the problem,
Mm,
so they only spend 2 weeks in getting him clean. And then, the rest of the time, that's when the real work starts. And that's about, why is he an addict? Why does he choose,
mm,
addiction? And, it's the underlying basically. And that's where a lot of people, it's one thing to go and get clean.
mm,
But if you don't address, why you're choosing to go down that road in the first place, it's usually to run away from something, really.
yeah,
But you can't run away from yourself. This is the thing.
damn
Um,
right, damn right. So, emotional sobriety is what I always address it as, you know, like, it's one thing, like you say, get sober. It's easy to stop. Staying stop's obviously really hard, but, you know, anyone can stop, but staying stopped, you know. And emotional sobriety is what I discovered underneath just being sober, you know, is like,
no.
right, okay, I need to now learn how to be in my body. You know, I need to learn how to be comfortable with me. Now I'm sober.
But this is the thing. And to live with yourself and no one's perfect. This is all about self-acceptance, I think, you know.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Uh,
absolutely right. So describe your life now. What's life like?
uh,
So fast forward. So we're fast forwarding a year since he's been out now.
uh, yeah, just over, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah, thereabouts. Well, I have to mention, while he was in rehab, I decided to move country.
So I can obviously see the sunshine there, and it's November and it's bloody raining here in the UK.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. And you decided to do that because
Well,
you like
uh,
sunshine.
well, I do like the sunshine, so, very good reason. But you know, he did so much work on himself. I wanted to give not just him, but everyone a fresh start. And, for him to succeed, I didn't think it was a good idea to, because, especially when you're that young, um, one of the problems is also the people you surround yourself with. So, and I didn't think to go back to the place and the same people would be a good idea. So this is a
Mm.
fresh start, with no bad memories or whatsoever for him, for my daughter, for myself. Which, yeah. Um,
Why not? You know, it's, I mean, brilliant, great. And Alex was, I think, quite happy to have a new experience
yes.
in a new place, right?
Yes. He's been very grateful. And, I mean, since he's been back, he's done so much. I mean, he's been volunteering at, local animal shelter. He's been living on site actually in a caravan. I don't know if you remember, I phoned you about that. I was very nervous to let him go. But so he's been, reintegrating in society. So he's been living, surrounded by people that drink and smoke weed because smoking weed here is legal. And he's absolutely fine. He's been going out. He's got, friends where he's even gone to a nightclub or he goes out for coffees or he's living a normal life in society, being happy. He smiles every day. It's I mean, yeah, I don't know. Thinking back 2 years ago, I could have never imagined, seeing both of my kids happy and live. This is the thing, they're living, he's living life. I haven't seen him live life in a long, long time. Um,
And is it fair to say when he goes out the front door, you don't have a mild panic attack or or like anticipating a knock on the door from the police or a phone
no, no,
from a
yes,
hospital
no.
or
I have to say at the start, obviously, there was a bit of nervousness, but then, this has been a journey for me as well. And now there's just this trust, basically, where I want him to live, and this is the whole point. So no, it's great. I mean, he can, the other day he said to me, "Oh, do you mind dropping me off because I'm meeting such and such?" And if I need to live back, I'll let you know. So I go and drop him off. I come back. And if anything, I'm like, "This is great. So now I'm gonna put a crappy Christmas film on and just have some me time instead of, wandering the house, being, scared and thinking,
yeah.
where is he or what is going to happen?" So, yeah.
And then you gotta worry about the knives going missing and
No, no,
so that's
they're all there.
wow. So it's really inspiring to be part of that as well, it's just such an honor to be that's why I do what I do. But like what would you what's your takeaway, if you could sort of say to anyone that was listening, I mean, who finds this, this conversation as a
Well,
parent, well, from a
you,
parent's from a
as
parent's point of view.
don't give up. Like, don't give up. That's the one thing that I would say. Um, don't just be guided by yourself as well. There's a lot of people that will tell you a lot of different things, but you know your kids best. When we're now talking about addiction, and, especially like, you know, through this process, I've met other parents, and, he's not the only one where there's aggression and all of this. Also, your child is still in there. And if anything, they're just scared. So just, no matter what they throw at you, don't give up. Stick with them. And, you will find a way through. I would say you really will. I didn't think we would, but we did. Um,
Wow. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end the conversation. It's a very powerful message of, you know, how you can go through absolute hell and come out on the other side. So thank you so much, Sue, for sharing your experience. Honestly, I know how hard that was for you at the time of living it, and yeah, just absolute respect for you, man, for
right. And
yeah,
thank you.
getting there. Oh no, 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 no. It's just like I say, I zone out. I turn into sort of like some other
Mm.
entity. It just does what it does and then moves on. But I'll be getting Alex on. We'll be talking. It'd be really interesting to hear Alex's point of view and his own perception and perspective of the whole experience as well. It'd be interesting because I'm sure he might not see things in the same way that a parent would.
Oh, probably not. Wow.
Ha But that's gonna be really interesting. But, I mean, it's just amazing, and I think the fact that you probably well, correct me if I'm wrong, you felt alone, like, that you were the
Yeah.
only person that knew what you was going through, no one else could possibly imagine. But you
No, I was very alone.
Yeah, and I know Alex felt the same. I know I felt the same, and I know a lot of other people feel exactly the same. That we feel we are the only ones that know what it's like to be us because no one else could possibly imagine or know. But it's only until you start talking about it to other people, you realize this is why Alex talking to me, talking to people in treatment and in his recovery circles, in the support groups that he still does to this day, and the people that you've connected to, other parents with shared
Yeah.
experiences. It's only until we join the dots and we start sharing our truth and getting real about it that we realize we're not alone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, like the person that put me in touch with you, this was another mum. I always remember when I spoke to her or when she spoke to me, it was like,
Mm,
talking into a mirror because she was describing exactly what I was going through, but she had come through the other end,
mm.
and that gives
Wow,
hope.
it does, and this is why, we are capturing what we've just talked about so we can put it out there and share it. So, Sue, thank you. I'm jealous of your climate and the sun. Ah, uh,
I'm quite cold. It's only 20 degrees here.
oh, shut up, man. Anyway, look, take care. I'm gonna close it off now. Um, but thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.